My name is Debbie Schmeeding. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Athens County. Thank you so much for coming for this candidate forum for Alexander School Board. We hope that your participation tonight will give you all the information you need to know to make a really smart and informed decision when you vote. And I have to say, I have never been at a league event, forum, and we've done a lot of them, where so many questions have already been submitted. We haven't even started the program. So you guys are very curious and know what you want to know, and that's great. Our candidates tonight are Kathy Dougan, John Hutchison, Lucy Delaval Juedes, and Blake Regan. And additionally, Ralph Harvey Sr. is also running for school board, but not able to be here tonight. I want to tell you a little bit about the League of Women Voters. We are a national organization, 100 years old next year. The League is open to men and women, name notwithstanding. And we are a nonpartisan organization, meaning we do not endorse any candidate or party in any situation, but we do stand for a number of issue positions based on grassroots consensus decision-making from our local league structure through our state leagues and to national. So the National League of Women Voters has a set of positions guiding policy toward good government, in our view, and as do the state boards of League of Women Voters. For example, one thing we've been very busy on the last several years are the redistricting legislation for our Ohio legislative seats as well as our Ohio congressional seats. So we were supportive of the legislation or the votes that were taken in the last few years to redraw the district maps around the state. We are also very active this year in making sure that we prepare for an accurate and complete census in 2020. It's a very important thing, so tell everybody you know to answer those census forms. It has a lot to do with federal money that gets allocated to our county and to our region, and also the nature of representation that we have in Congress. All right, so I think, the other pitch I want to make is well, perhaps, hopefully, you have seen at one point or another our League of Women Voters voter guide in print. We do that every year for the primaries and the general elections. But in addition, there is a website that has candidate information, 411.org. Yeah, vote411.org. There are cards over there to remind you how to get to it, but it will have voter guide type questions answered by candidates. So you can go in there and type in your district, your area, and it will give you your ballot and information from your candidates. It's an extremely valuable resource. So thank you very much. Please consider joining the League of Women Voters. We are doing our best to become a true countywide league, and to that end we can always use help from folks out around in the county to put on events like this and do some of the other activities. So I'm going to turn this over now to Wenda Sheard, who is the moderator for our program.
Hello, good evening. The first thing I think I need to do is introduce the candidates. They're the most important folks up here. They have drawn lots for who goes first. I don't think this has ever happened, but they drew lots that are also alphabetical order. Now, to give them a chance to test out their mics, I want to let them know that the folks who are doing the tech back there have told me that you're welcome to take the mic out of its seat there, and you should speak with the mic just about as far away from your mouth as mine is from my mouth. Okay? Do you want to each practice by, no, I don't know, check it out. Let's do a mic check while you introduce yourselves. Not your opening statement, just your name.
Okay, my name is Kathy Dougan. And John Hutchison.
Lucy Delaval, Juedes.
Blake Regan.
Okay, it looks like it works best if you pick the whole thing up. Okay, do that? Yeah, or with its stand. You can pick it up with its stand, that'll work too. There also is a fifth candidate who's running for Alexander School Board, Ralph Harvey Sr., who is not here tonight. Now, I will start by explaining some of the procedures for this forum, which each candidate received ahead of time. But I remembered one more very important part of the script that I need to cover, is that this forum is co-sponsored by the Alexander Local Education Association. Thank you very much. If you're part of the Alexander Local Education Association, would you please raise your hand, just so we can appreciate you for putting this on along with the League of Women Voters of Athens County. Thank you. Okay, instructions. This event will include opening statements from each candidate, questions from media representatives, if any who are present wish to ask questions, questions from the audience, and then closing statements from the candidates. First, the instructions to the candidates that they received ahead of time. You will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 1 minute for a closing statement, and 1.5 minutes to answer each question. There will be no rebuttals. Opening and closing statements will be in the order you drew lots, which is alphabetical order, the order you're seated. The order for the first question responses will rotate, and I will indicate who speaks first each time. I have a cheat sheet so I can try to keep track of that. Okay. The timekeeper, Marty Delata, is sitting in the first row. When there is half a minute left on your speaking time, the timekeeper will hold up a card that says 30 seconds, indicating you have 30 seconds to finish your answer. At 15 seconds, the timekeeper will hold up the 15-second card. Please wrap up when you see the time card. She's got a time one down there on the thing. Yeah, the time one I think is that one there. Yeah, good, okay. If you continue speaking after the stop card is held up, I will say thank you and move on to the next speaker. That's what the script says, anyway. Okay, instructions to the audience, please. And what am I going to say? Yeah, I just heard mine beep. I'm a bad person here. Okay, I got it done. So if you could turn off, silence your cell phone, that would be lovely too. Please remain quiet throughout the forum. No clapping, cheering, or calling out, with the exception that after all their closing statements, you may clap for all the candidates if you wish. Now, you're encouraged to submit questions for the candidates on the paper we've provided. Questions must be addressed to all candidates and must apply to the issues or qualifications of their particular office, which is the office they're running for, school board. Raise your hand if you'd like another paper or to have your question collected. Would all the league members who are collecting questions please stand up so people can see you? You could even give one there to Seal Weldon or Richard Thuray, I think are the two collecting. I happen to be married to that fellow. Anyway, a league panel composed of the women you see there, plus members of the Alexander Local Education Association are reviewing the questions to make sure they meet the criteria and to verify and to remove any duplicate questions to make sure they're legible so I'm able to read them. We will use as many questions as time allows sometimes combining similar questions, striving to cover a variety of topics. If you don't hear your particular question, it could be combined with similar ones. Now let's begin with opening statements. The first person, Katheleen Dougan.
I'm Kathy Dougan. I was born and raised in Meigs County. I attended Southern local schools until 1980 when I married my high school sweetheart, Steve Dougan. I graduated from Alexander in 1981. We have 2 grown children, also Alexander graduates, and 2 grandchildren. Ryland attends West Elementary in Athens, and Cooper attends Alexander. Steve and I will celebrate our 40th anniversary in February. I worked at Tiny Tech Preschool as a teacher when our children were young, and I became a bus driver for Alexander in the fall of 1989. When Alexander consolidated in 2004 and opened our new building under one campus, I moved from transportation to custodial maintenance, which is the job I currently hold. I will be retiring November the 30th of 2019. I would like to add that it has been an honor and a privilege to work for Alexander for 30 years. While at Alexander, I have driven bus, worked in the kitchen, volunteered in the classroom when our children were small. Steve and I served on the last 3 levy attempts. We were co-leaders in the Lodi in the last successful one. I have been a member of OPSI Local 525 Union since its beginning here at Alexander. I have also served as the secretary of OPSI 525 since the early 2000s. My last several years, I have been blessed to work in the gym area, coming in close contact with many students and coaches, the public, and have helped them in all facets of their life, from cooking roasters of chicken noodles and baking for them, or helping kids to do their laundry that don't have any running water at home. My goal as a board member, if elected, is to bring that same passion and kindness to the table for the students. Thank you.
Next.
Good evening. I'm John Hutchison. I have a 54-year association with the school district. I started out as a student for 12 years. I think we were the 5th graduating class from what was then the new high school and would now be considered the old part of the school system. I taught in this district for 30 years, and while teaching, I coached most of those years, often more than one sport per year. I even drove a school bus some. We had a time when we didn't have enough bus drivers, so I went and got a CDL and drove as a substitute occasionally. We have 3 children, my wife and I. They all graduated from Alexander, so I think I've seen this district from the eyes of a school board member, an employee, a parent, a student, and to a small extent, a bus driver. We live on a family farm where my grandpa was born in 1899, and from my grandpa, I think I inherited a love of horses, and you may have seen me driving a team of big black horses, giving wagon rides around through the community at some time. The other thing I do to keep myself out of mischief now that I'm retired, in the winter time, I drive a tour bus for Ohio University, and I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Next.
Hello. Thank you for coming here, and it's awesome and a bit overwhelming to see so many people here. My name is Lucy Delaval Juedes, and in case you're wondering, it's Juedes like Adidas. It's the care that brought my husband and I over a decade ago to send our kids to Alex. While I had several new mom friends who were sending their kids elsewhere, I had several more experienced mom and grandma friends who told me about how good Alexander was. And so David and I decided to send our kids here. So our kids go to Alex. We have 3. They're in junior high and high school. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my husband works at OU. I have over 15 years of paid work experience in project management, communications, and risk management. I've served on the youth football board and Cub Scouts boards. I volunteered a lot with, not 4-H, with the local food pantry and other local organizations. And I was a substitute teacher here for about a year and a half. Currently, I'm my church's treasurer, and I'm responsible for making sure our staff and Uncle Sam get paid and get paid on time, and that the money is managed as the congregation expects it to be. I'm running for our local school board because I believe we need new, independent, prudent leaders. Just in the past couple years, I've seen information that was withheld from board members. I've seen the school not tell the whole truth about safety issues. I've seen key details not included in important discussions. I've seen the board approve programs without verifying the need or adequate assessment. And from my earlier work on the levy, I heard numerous concerns of fiscal mismanagement going back a decade. In short, I've seen little accountability of the board to families or voters. So if you're looking for an independent, prudent board member who will look at what the school is doing and make careful decisions, especially looking at the numbers, I would like your vote. Thank you.
Next.
Verse 9, Blake Regan. First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the ALEA for hosting this event and giving myself, as well as the community here and online, a better chance to get to know each other. About a year and a half ago, I was approached after giving a public participation presentation by multiple community members about running for board or needing a voice like mine on the board. While flattered, honestly, I was hesitant to do so. I'm not one that likes the spotlight, and all three of them. In addition to putting my wife and kids, my wife's a teacher here, my kids go to school here, through the campaign process, as other candidates that I had previously run, I heard horror stories from. In addition to the fact that I know all too well that nobody's going to agree with every decision made by the board. And not only will that impact me, that's going to impact my kids and my wife. But since then, I witnessed way too many community members, including students, parents, staff members, just simply taxpayers, feeling as if they were either being disrespected, lied to, or just straight out ignored, that I knew my fears were selfish. And I knew my education, my experience, and my commitment to our community is something that could be an asset not only to our school board, our school district, but all of our entire community. And that is why I'm running for board, and that's why I ask you for your support and your vote. Thank you.
Now we move to the question and answer portion of the forum. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. As the league does, we invite the media to pose the first questions. I know we have Tom and Collin Williams in WAIS. Were you passing?
I'm passing.
They're passing, okay. And I know we have Heather Willard from the Messenger, who has also passed. Are there any other media people here tonight? Okay, we're going straight to the audience questions at this point. The first question, we start with Ms. Dougan. Okay, and then we go down the row, each of you answering. And even though you have a minute and a half, you don't need to take the whole minute and a half. Look how many questions we have already. So we'll try. And the first one is a long one. To be eligible for a board position, you must be a resident of the district. Some of you have lived here for a few years and have friends in the district and on the board and in administration. Others are long-term residents with deeply rooted friendships in the district and on the board. What plan do you have in place to protect your autonomy as a board member, especially when so many difficult decisions must be made concerning staffing and people you know? Ms. Dougan.
Well, I guess being a third-year employee, I have made lots and lots of friends, and I do have friends on the board. But I think You have to separate that. You have to have an open mind and communicate with your other board members to separate yourself from a friendship and a professional job that you have with a job to do.
Mr. Hutchison?
This is a small community. Most of us board members and the candidates at this table know most of the people in the community, I expect. Certainly, I think I know most of the people in the community. As Kathy just said, you've got to kind of separate that from making board decisions. I've been on the board 12 years now, and I can't recall ever having a time when that seemed difficult to me, really.
I don't have as close a connection as many people here to the school, so it's not as applicable to me. But my kids go here and they're taught by people in the audience and coaches. I generally stay pretty much, I focus on my kids. I don't talk about boards. I try not to interfere in what they're doing, and I wouldn't interfere with what, I don't know, I'm just having a hard time with this. I do think if I'm on the board, what I would want to do is to put in place I would look at the employee policies and look at other school policies and put in place some type of actual structure where if any employee had concerns that they were being harmed in any way by any board members, they would have a place to go to and bring that up. And that would be the case with other people who were affiliated with the school. I would want some type of process put in place to protect people if they felt that they needed it.
Well, I think I have the least amount of connection. We moved into district about 6 years ago, but my wife has been teaching at Alex for, I think, 10 or 11 years. So we've gotten friends, and I've gotten to know many of the board members. And I think I've built those friends and everything off of who I am, which is being honest and making decisions off of evidence. And that's where, especially with the board, where I think I've gained a lot of respect from the board, is being able to make decisions off of evidence and not feelings. That's kind of the reason why in my campaign I didn't accept any donations from anybody. It's all out of my pocket, because I didn't want any one of my decisions or votes, if elected, to ever be considered. He's only doing that because he was supported by that person or not supported. Oh, I thought that was a yell. That's kind of the action that I've put in place. Is I don't want anybody to think that any decision I ever do make has anything to do with feelings. My decisions are purely evidence-based, and you can even ask my wife, she hates it.
Okay, our second question is very similar, so I'm going to take a poll of the candidates to see if they want to address it or not. Given the small community we live in and the concerns regarding nepotism, would ALEA, Alexander Local Education Association, negotiations and contract renewals be something you ethically can participate in? You want to, let's give you each a chance to give a quick answer on that, because I heard one of you wants to say something. Mr. Hutchison, you get to go first this time. And you can pass.
No, I'll go ahead and say something. It may not make sense, but I'll say something. I think negotiations with ALEA and OPS, our two unions, have the most lasting effect on our finances of anything the board does. One-time expenditures do not affect our budget nearly as much as changes in salary or benefits. Those are the biggies in terms of keeping a balanced budget. And I certainly have no reason that I couldn't participate, and I have participated in those decisions and negotiations in the past.
Ms. Juedes?
I would agree with John. Anyone, if we can't separate our personal selves from the people here, we can't be on the board. That is one of the, negotiating with the unions are one of the biggest things that the board does, so yes.
So I definitely see some people thinking that I might have an issue with that, and the fact that my wife is a teacher and part of that bargaining agreement. But I can attest my own, if a couple of you guys, if any of you remember issue 2 a while back about the deunionization of public offices, that was one that definitely is straight, same idea, where if passed, that would have hurt my wife in my pocket. But I still it might hurt me here, but I voted yes. And that was purely because I believed it was right, even though it hurt my bottom line. I can be completely impartial, and it was based on the facts. Now that it didn't pass, I have no problem with unions. It's the way that the people decided, and that's the way that it is. And so I have no issue in bargaining agreements, and I don't see any conflict of interest in doing such.
Ms. Dougan?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I would have no problem removing friends, relatives from that. I would have no problem doing that.
Thank you. Next question. Do you understand the role of the superintendent versus the role of the school board? Please explain these roles as you understand them. And we'll start with Ms. Juedes.
Yes, I believe the school board is in charge. The superintendent and the treasurer report to the school board, and everyone else reports to them. The school board is responsible for the overall management of the school, and too often it gets caught up in details because things are not handled well at the different levels within the school. So, yes, I believe the school board is in charge.
It is my understanding that the superintendent's job is, number 1, student welfare and safety. Number 2, curriculum development. Number 3, budget management. And number 4, facility management. As board members, their job is to provide vision for that and direction and improve policies. Whoever you want to say is in charge of that, I think they both have their own role, but as a board member, we approve and evaluate a superintendent to make sure that those policies are being put in place, and the vision that we as a community see what we want our school is and it's heading in that direction. So our job is to take the views of the community, bring it into the school, and the superintendent's job is to enact that.
Okay. My understanding of that is that the board hires the superintendent to run the superintendent and the treasurer, excuse me, to run the district. The board evaluates the superintendent, and the board hires and works with the treasurer to set the budget for the school. One of few things that they do. Also, my understanding of the superintendent's role is that they act as basically the CEO of the district. They recommend qualified employees for hire. They oversee the day-to-day operations, and they take the needs of the district to the board. Thank you.
Okay. Most of the points I would make have already been made, I think. The role of the superintendent is the chief executive officer of school. Superintendent wears a lot of hats. They've got to be a personnel manager. They hear a lot of complaints. They have to understand curriculum. They have to know a lot about school law, which is a really thorny subject. And they bring recommendations to the board. They provide the overall leadership day to day for the school. The role of the school board, I think most of these have been mentioned. We hire the superintendent and treasurer. we set policy for the school. And right now, the school.
Okay, another question. Do you, as a board member candidate, believe that an American flag should continue to be flown in front of our school and that flags should be present in the classrooms and the pledge should continue to be said daily? Mr. Regan?
That was an American flag?
Yes.
Yeah, it said American.
Yes. I don't know. If somebody chooses that they don't want to, they have the right to do so. But in my view, that flag symbolizes not only our nation, but those that have served it, and we wouldn't have that opportunity without them. So, absolutely. I'm sorry.
Ms. Dougan?
Yes, I believe it should. My grandson that I spoke of, Ryland, that goes to West Elementary, actually they do not say the Pledge of Allegiance, and they've taken all the flags down, folded them up, and put them in a box. So this is very, very dear to my heart. I think it should stay in the classrooms. I think it is, as Blake said, it honors our freedom and honors our vets, and I feel very strongly about that, yes.
I think Blake gave a wonderful answer, and I'd like to say amen to it and move on.
Yes.
Whoa, that was quick. Okay, next one. If elected or re-elected, how would you be involved in the school other than attending monthly board meetings?
How would I be involved in the school other than attending the monthly board meetings? Okay, well, whether I make it on the board or not, my plans are I am going to be very involved with the athletic boosters. I am going to be involved with concessions. And I am going to be our students' biggest fan at those games. I will be at every game that I possibly can get to because the students are my passion.
If I am not elected, I would like to be a tutor. I don't think I can serve on the school board and volunteer as a tutor. So that's my backup plan. In answer to the actual question, I think I could best give some examples of how I've been involved in the last year. Since January, I was very involved outside of meetings with a couple of gentlemen from the Albany Village Council who are here today, and also with a fellow board member, Fred Davis. Larry Payne approached me about trying to make a settlement with Albany. And after a series of meetings with he and Neil Reynolds, we were able to come up with a negotiated agreement that was unanimously approved by both boards, and we ended our long drawn-out lawsuit with the village and are strong supporters of one another and friends. I was highly involved in getting a suicide prevention program started here in the school for staff and students. And although this may cost me votes, it was controversial and I didn't expect it. I was also highly involved in getting free breakfast started on a trial basis this semester.
If I'm on the board, I'll still be continuing to do sports things with my kids and their friends. But if I'm on the board, I see that there would be more. I think that we need to do more board work around budget issues and around safety issues. So I would think that the work I would do would be diving in more deeply into safety issues at the school and assessing budget issues at the school. I don't think the current board does a good enough job of looking at the budget in detail or safety issues. So I would be doing more board work.
I don't think it will change much for me. I'll still be available as I am now. I'm not a board member, but I still make myself available to the community, parents and non-parents, students, whatnot, for whether it be for the tutoring, free tutoring, tutor many students in mathematics. I have gone to sporting events, theater events. I don't think anything would change. I still volunteer for my students' parties and chaperones when I can, and I don't see anything changing. I just think it would be more visible because people would know who that guy is, I guess.
Another question, or we have, here it is. What are 3 things that the board has done this year that you approve of? We'll start with Mr. Hutchison.
I think I just answered that. The 3 things that I was highly involved with was the settlement with Albany, which I think everyone involved approves of. I think it was a win-win for everyone concerned. And I think Larry Payne and Neil Reynolds deserve a lot of credit for that. I have been touched by teen suicide, and I got an opportunity to go to a day-long teen suicide prevention seminar in our school district at Robert Zephyrs Farm. And I learned a lot. I found it heartbreaking. And I brought my information back and gave it to our superintendent, who then pursued it. And our principals and guidance people voted unanimously that they wanted to do this. And the first training session was scheduled to be in January, but the principals came to the superintendent and said, we want to have it sooner than that. It's important we get started. So the first training session was held in September. And to me, that's perhaps the most important thing I've ever done on the board. And then I knew that other schools sometimes gave free breakfast, and I've been involved in that. And it may or may not work out. It's a trial basis, but we will see.
Hello. The 3 things that I agree that the board has done this year that I've liked. 1, coming to an agreement with the Village of Albany. 2, I believe they had signed a new agreement with the Athens County Sheriff's Office. And 3, I believe I don't know if the board did this, but I know there's been a lot of anti-bullying work at the elementary school. I'm not sure that counts as board work, but any work that the board does to find out the amount of bullying at our school and to address it at all levels is super important.
So I was sitting here thinking, one of the biggest things that I think, obviously, is the agreement with Albany. The second one was not only the breakfast pilot, calling it a pilot, but also listening to the public output of wanting it with an option to opt out, that being willing to be flexible on that. And then lastly, maybe it's just because it's fresh, but awarding an executive session at the last board meeting, going against policy for student safety.
The 3 things that I approve of, there are many things when I go to board meetings that I approve of, but 3 things that immediately came to mind was the water deal with Albany, and the second one was free breakfast. I really appreciate and approve of the kids getting that. And the third one is a personal one, but I approve of them accepting my resignation, November 30th.
Great. Please be specific and explain what business and/or financial background experience you would bring to the board, starting with Ms. Juedes.
Great. When I worked for Pay full-time, I worked in nonprofit communications and project management. I have a lot of experience working in big organizations. One of the things I did was get the new volunteer registration program up and running for an organization that ended up having 4,000 volunteers. It involved working with legal teams, working with our support people, the folks who handle crises, working with the financial people, working with IT and always checking everything. So I have a lot of experience in large projects. I know how big teams work. The boss of my boss was in charge of it, and I learned quickly when someone wasn't doing what they needed to do to go to her, and she would run interference to get something done. But mostly it was me doing my job, making it as easy as possible for me to convince other people to do their parts of their job that we needed to get done. And that was a 2-year process. I'm also my church's treasurer. I'm new. I've had accounting classes I know when money comes in, it goes out. If you code it, you can find it and you can look at all the details. I'm learning all about that. And that would be my experience, professional experience.
So part of my education is in business. I have my undergrad in mathematics applied to business with a business minor. I also have my master's degree is in applied mathematics to economics, so I got the education side, but I also have the experience side of prior to becoming instructor at Ohio University. I was a financial aid consultant for, I think I had roughly about 4,000 students under my caseload where I helped them budget and afford college, running through different scenarios, helping them figure out the best way that they can afford college and leave with actual money in their pocket. Besides that, I also have earned multiple grants that I had to budget for those. That still frees me up with the 30 seconds thing. And I also have had times helping family members run their business and look at numbers and run invoices and create Excel spreadsheets for them to help them budget themselves on multiple different levels.
Okay, there used to be a Curves women's weight loss facility in Athens. I was the manager there, and I was responsible for making deposits, paying the monthly bills, and in charge of my staff. I also take care of my own checkbook and balance my own finances, and Steve has a business that I help him with. So that's what I would bring to the board.
School finances are confusing. They're difficult. Luckily, we have a really good treasurer, Aaron Certain, who I think does a wonderful job and is very good at explaining it. My 12 years on the board have given me some understanding of school finance. I don't claim to be an expert. I also served 12 years on the Vinton Soil and Water Conservation District Board, and we were always broke. And we were constantly trying to make ends meet and struggling. I was a math teacher. That may help. The same as with Blake, it might help somewhat in understanding the numbers involved in finance. And maybe the thing that helps me the most, I've been poor all my life, and I still am. And I think I can understand the need for a budget and being careful of your money.
Next question. The Alexander Board of Education has been accused of a lack of transparency. In your observations, how is this manifested, and what actions would you suggest to alleviate the problem? Starting with Mr. Regan.
I think the biggest issue that this is manifested from is just pure communication. Many times things are said or done last minute, where the community doesn't have time to inform themselves, or decisions are made behind closed doors or sensitive information that people believe shouldn't be. In some cases, that has manifested itself to the point where everything is questioned. I've had people ask just the simplest statements of, I think it was the last board meeting or maybe 2 board meetings ago, they were talking about a grant that awards the school $20,000, but it's not earmarked. And immediately people started questioning what was the point of mentioning what's important about it not being earmarked. And because of that communication, people have a hard time trusting anybody, anything. They question everything. And so it purely comes down to communication and strong, authentic, real communication.
Okay, I agree with Blake. Better communication. maybe more planning before they or we, whoever, throws a plan out there. And also, I think it would be awesome to have a good PR person to get the information out there to the community so that we can communicate together.
Communication's a two-way street, and you probably haven't noticed, but I'm the old guy up here, and I'm not sure that I have a great grasp of how young people communicate today. And with that in mind, this January I was elected president of the board, and I believe at the first meeting I asked for a board member to volunteer to be the director of our communications and try to do a better job of communicating. And Josh Collins, who may be the youngest, I'm not sure, was kind enough to volunteer into the meeting. And I said to Josh, give us recommendations and I will support them. And he has done so. That led to the streaming. We now stream our meetings online. Josh is to thank for that, and he suggested it. I supported it. Little things like he told me that I should sit as board president, and I said, if you think that's the best place, we'll do it. I've tried to get our agenda out on time ahead of the meetings and then stick to the agenda. I too would love to have a PR person. If we could only have a full-time PR person, it would save. But once again, money becomes a problem though.
In order to be transparent, you have to want to be transparent. I believe all proposals that come before the board should be written out. The numbers should be spelled out. They need to be clear about saying the need, what the costs are in terms of time and money, alternatives, and how they'll be assessed. I believe the board documents, all the background documents, should be shared ahead of time from the website instead of calling the day of, which anyone can do, to call the school the day of to get the board documents if you want to get the background. Why not get those online ahead of time? Alexander thankfully participates in a program called Ohio Checkbooks. It has been dropped from the website, but you can go on there with the state of Ohio, look under school districts, look under Alexander, and you can look up every single expense that Alexander has paid, but no one knows about it because it's dropped off the website. I know that people talk about the athletic center. One of the reasons for building it was the desire to have it be equitable for female sports, and yet it was built with one locker room. So if we're going to be transparent, why was I told it was built to make sports more equitable for girls, but I was never told until the actual visit with them that there's one locker room? Maybe there's a plan for the overall usage of the sports. I haven't seen it, and I don't know if the board has seen a use plan for all the athletic facilities.
Okay, thank you. Another question? What concerns would you immediately want to address should you be elected, and how have you prepared for addressing those concerns? What concerns would you immediately want to address should you be elected, and how have you prepared for addressing those concerns?
I am. Trying to think.
I saw she knew, so that's good.
Well, I think we are doing a very good job with bullying, but it never hurts to, that is near and dear to my heart, so I would want to follow up maybe on that and just make sure that we're doing all that we can do to keep our students safe. And what have I done to prepare for that? I really don't know how you prepare right offhand how you prepare for that, other than I would write something up and present it to my board members and go from there and see where we could go with it.
If we're elected, I have a long laundry list of ideas, but I guess the first one is we need to maintain our academic excellence. We are the highest rated school district in the county, and very nearly in all of southeastern Ohio academically on the Ohio report card, and we need to try to maintain that. We are also the lowest cost per student of any school district in Athens County, and I would like to maintain that. That shows good stewardship of our money. I'd like to continue to upgrade our facilities. I think we do a wonderful job. Our maintenance staff here does a wonderful job of taking care of our facilities, and I'm proud of that. I'd like to continue to train our staff and our students on vital issues that are societal issues. Suicide is not the only one that is on my heart and mind. I'd like to see the road opened over to the church and improve the traffic flow, AM and PM. I think that's something we need to work on. But all of these have to fit within our budget. And they've got to keep our forecast sustainable financially. Thank you.
I would have 3 things that I think the board needs to look more in depth at. One is school safety. The report that the superintendent gave to the board last December was very basic. The media article in Athens News gave parents much more information. So I would want to get the same information that the media had. It's all available via public records request. Have that as a board member and take a look at that. 2, the budget. I think we need to look at the budget more in detail. We need to look at lines. If it's coded, you can find it. 3, the curriculum. What spending was cut last in terms of trying to cut costs for before the levy passed? Has that been put back in? If so, why? And if not, why? How are we doing with the curriculum spending? There's been no report to the board in terms of spending, only about the good test results, which are pretty cool. Those would be my 3 issues: safety, budget, and look at the curriculum.
I would agree with Lucy. My biggest concern would be our balanced budget. I know, looking at numbers given at board meetings, along with new spending since the levy has passed, put together with the cost that I've heard. I try to get better numbers, but I haven't, so I can only go off the rumored numbers of what breakfast will cost us. We're looking at a 4-year deficit with our past levy. And roughly $65,000 in 4 years. And that's with our levy passed. And so if we lose control of our budget, we are going to lose control of our district. So that is by far number 1. Number 2, communication. I've already started working on that. If I'm elected as board member, I'm trying to learn Facebook. I'm not a Facebooker. I know a lot of people do that. And so I'm trying to learn it to give yet another avenue of communication. And lastly, security. And that how to address it, I'm not really sure. I don't know the full numbers, as Lucy pointed out. I'm not sure the full numbers. But I just know that there are plenty of parents and students that fear for their safety. And I want to make sure that every student comes here knowing that they are safe. And they cannot learn unless they know that first. Thank you.
Well, before I read this question, let me reiterate that our question reviewers are doing a great job reviewing your questions, and all the questions up here have been great questions. Some of them have been duplicates, so I'm trying to make sure we get a wide variety today. Here is a question that the reviewers have sent up to me. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being utterly critical and 10 being completely supportive, how would you rate your sentiments toward the job done by our current superintendent? Mr. Hutchison, it's yours first.
Thank you. I think we have a great superintendent. Nobody's perfect. You're never going to find a superintendent that is perfect. You're never going to find a perfect board member. I don't know that I've ever met any perfect people except maybe my wife. And I had to say that, I've been told. Our superintendent has led us to the highest scores we've ever achieved on the state report card last year, the most recent one. Our budget's balanced. Blake said that he might not have correct figures. I talked to our treasurer, Aaron Sohn, today, and we are going to be running in the black at least through 4 years. And he thinks probably through 5. If you want the official figures, come to the November board meeting, and he's going to be giving a 5-year forecast. We feel that we can, based on the money that we have, we can go the next 10 years at least, and would hope to go longer than that, and would be hoping to get a little more financial support from the school, from the state, excuse me. But I believe that our superintendent is doing a great job. She's a great advocate for public education and for Alexander.
Ms. Juedes?
I would say a 4. The Sheriff's Office and the Athens County Prosecutor are watching us, and there's probably other organizations that are watching us too. I know safety for some kids, too many kids, is an issue. We have a building that got started and it's not finished yet. That was generally a board decision. But there was a whole lot of other things that happened in approving that and saying that yes, we could pull money from operational funds to start an athletic center, that I don't believe the need was shown for adequately. And I believe that center should have been built with money from a levy and not out of operating funds. So yeah, a 4.
I'm happy to share my numbers anytime you want. That's what I do. First of all, when you go through the list of things that a superintendent is in charge of, the actual learning of students, that's the teachers, and hats off to them for the scores that they achieved. Now, as far as the actual superintendent, the way I look at the superintendent is the student welfare. I don't know if I can give a high score on the student welfare. Just based on the students, the multiple students. If anybody was at the security meeting last February, there were parents and teachers in an uproar. And it was heartbreaking. Curriculum development, not really sure on that point. A lot of things were cut due to budget cuts. I don't think it's fair to judge her on that one. Budget management, obviously, I can give a 0. Property management, this building is great. Do I believe there was a need for that building across the street? You can make that point. When it's finished, it just needs to be leveraged correctly for the entire community and not just athletics. Thank you.
Okay, as Mr. Hutchison said, we have the highest scores in the county, and that is tremendous. I believe Mrs. Douglas has over 30 years of experience, and because of her, we have received funds for the wraparound services, and we are the model for the state of Ohio. I think she's doing a good job. Thank you.
What actions do you think the school board could undertake to help the least privileged of students succeed in school? Ms. Juedes?
I think we're already doing a lot of that. I know that a lot of the elementary education really has to be front-loaded at the elementary level, and we have a preschool here that's it's affiliated with the school, but it's not the school. I know there's a lot of focus in the elementary about how well the students are doing, helping the students who have need for more attention and quieter rooms, they can get that help that they need. I know there's a lot of focus on reading at the early level. I know that's important, and that's already
Work done by the superintendent. That was handed down by the government. But as far as giving that access to multiple students, or all students, first of all, it's clear that we just need access to fair and equitable education that includes technology, and I think we do a good job of that right now. In addition to that, I think we have to start, as a board, creating career pathways. That doesn't mean push them to college. Vocational schools. Something I would love to do if elected is start a senior experience, whether it be a junior year or senior year experience, where students can take a quarter and join industry and feel it and know what they're going to walk into. And I think given the right direction, we can make that happen where a student knows what they're walking into when they walk past this stage and into real life. Thank you.
Okay, when we speak of the students that need a little extra help, I think the correct word for that is our bubble kids, because I have a grandson that goes here that is a bubble kid. So this is very important to me, and I have a whole page full of notes that I made in case this came up. Cooper struggles with reading comprehension, and I know that we are trying to set up a after-school class, and I hope that that happens, that we can get that filled and it happens, to help with reading comprehension and math, which are the two problems that we seem to be having in the elementary. And so I think that that is a very, very important thing, is to reach these bubble kids before we lose them and they come down here, or bring them up to the average. So that is an important thing to me. Reading comprehension and math are very important things, and as Lucy said, the after-school program, I would love to see an after-school program put back in place, not only to help our kids with their homework, but also to help working parents who can't get here by the time school's over. So I would love to see that.
The board did authorize some funds for an after-school program, but at the moment we are struggling finding enough workers to staff the after-school program. 40 years ago, I would have said that the only duty of the school was to educate kids. Today, I've totally changed my mind now. We have kids, for last year we had 17 homeless students in our district. We have kids struggling with the opioid addiction. We have kids struggling with dysfunctional homes. It is heartbreaking. They are bringing an incredible amount of baggage to school with them, and it's going to cost us some money, and the wraparound money from the state, which over 2 years is approximately $800,000, is really going to help in meeting the needs of some of these most needy students. I totally agree with what Blake said, vocational education. Our educational programs in America seem to assume that everyone should go to college, and I would like to see us increase the vocational opportunities for our students.
The Alexander District has a chain of command policy. What do you see is the board's role in this process, or this policy, and what changes, if any, would you implement in the chain of command policy? We start with Mr. Regan.
Haven't been through the chain of command. I think the chain of command it works. For those that don't know, you got to work your way up. If you're not satisfied, you go higher and go higher. One thing that definitely needs to be brought up and is, what if your complaint is at the highest level? I go to complain to this person that I want to complain about. I think our policy needs to address that. Not saying that I have that complaint anymore. I've continued to work with the superintendent. I think we need to address the chain of command at the highest level. Because right now the board's policy is when you're not satisfied there, you go through the superintendent and to request an executive session. And I know myself and 3 others in this exact same situation have been denied that opportunity, even having followed the chain of command.
Okay, well, I think the chain of command anywhere, not just as board members, but anywhere is very important. I think it's very important that it be followed because I think it protects all people involved. What I would do to change that without having more information, I really can't answer that, but I feel that it is very important to follow the chain of command. Thank you.
We have a lot of policies that relate directly to this question. The chain of command in general is the board is at the top. The superintendent and treasurer are under the board and they are independent of one another. Principals report to the superintendent. Supervisors like maintenance supervisor, transportation supervisor, athletic directors report to the principal, and then your other teachers and custodial bus drivers, etc., report to their various supervisors. I think if you follow the chain of command and you follow the policies related to the chain of command, things work out well. When we try to shortcut the policies, somebody gets left out and things are not handled in an orderly fashion, in my opinion.
I'm a parent, so I really like chains of commands. And it's important to know who's responsible for what. Believe me, when I did that volunteer registration project, I knew who reported to whom and who I needed to talk with and who I needed to beg and who I needed to work harder for to get them to do something that they were supposed to do. So I like structure and I like knowing who's responsible for what. But in any organization, you always need someone who's off on an island someplace that people can go to and say, hey, this is happening, I need help. Maybe it's maybe it's a board member, maybe it's someone else at staff, and it has to be someone that people truly trust. It can't just be, it's their job. I think at the university it could be what's called an ombudsman or something. You can structure into a chain of command, I'm having a hard time, who do I go to? You don't have to just, it doesn't have to be a straight ladder. You can structure it however you want. So I like chain of commands, I like clear authority and responsibility, but you always need to give people a way out just to take into account human nature. Thank you.
Are there examples of any actions taken by the school board in recent years with which you disagree? And can you explain the basis of your disagreement and how you would have done differently? Ms. Dougan.
Any actions?
Yeah, any examples of any actions taken by the school board in recent years with which you disagree?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one right off the top of my head. I guess I'm going to pass on that question because I would have to think about that one.
Yeah, I've lost a couple of votes in the last year. I voted on the losing side, but I don't think it's appropriate for a board member. Once the board votes and I lose, I think it is my job to say that the board has spoken and I'm going to support what the board ruled. And a lot of times I'm saying to myself, you know, they may be right. That's why there's 5 of us. I may be wrong and they may be right. And so I'm not going to go into details on any of the things that I disagreed on.
And I'm going to take a risk here. I disagreed that the last levy should have been put on the ballot. I'm very thankful that it passed. I didn't think it had a chance to. I had worked on the levy the last time really hard in May of 2018. And I talked with a lot of people. I knocked on over 400 doors, half in the Waterloo Township and half in other roads that I picked up from other people who couldn't do them. And I heard from, there just seemed to be a core group of people who didn't trust the school and were never going to vote for the levy. And out of the levy committee came a suggested document of things the school board could do that was different. I actually had no input in that because I was on my way driving to Chicago to my niece's graduation from University of Chicago, and she went to Alexander valedictorian. So I had no input in that document, but that document talked about several different things that the board needed to do differently if it wanted to build the trust of the voters at Alexander. The board has done none of those things. And it cost $30,000 to put the levy on in May because there was nothing else on the ballot. So I wrote a letter to the board, each member, saying, I don't think you should do it, it's too confusing. I'm glad I was wrong, but one vote. So, yeah, that was what I disagreed with.
I think the simplest answer is I wouldn't be here if I didn't. But that being said, I don't disagree with all of them. I think the biggest one that I had an issue with, and it wasn't the actual, and I don't want to be taken the wrong way, it wasn't the actual rehire of the superintendent. It was the manner in which it happened. If anybody was at that board meeting, there was an agreement going into that meeting in which it was openly stated that there was an agreement, and that agreement changed, I think, an hour before the actual board meeting, where the majority, 3 board members, decided they're throwing away what they had discussed, and they're going to use the majority and go with what they want, without discussion as a board. And to me, decision or not, you have to act as a board, and not as a majority. You need to act in the best interest of students and the community, and going in a majority or thug mentality is not the way, and that's where it is a straight disappointment. Thank you.
Several employees of the school worked hard on the Say Yes to Alexander Levy Committee until it finally passed by 1 vote. You see a theme here? Okay. Several times the same statement was heard. Voters want change in the superintendent, new board members, and how the money was being spent. If elected or re-elected, what changes do you feel are most important for the Alexander local school district, and how would you implement them? We start with Mr. Hutchison.
Okay, well, since I'm already on the board, sometimes I advocate for changes, but before you start advocating for changes, you've got to get board support. 1 board member can do nothing, and there's no point in going out on a limb and offending the other board members if you don't have some support. No single board member can enact anything. You have to have at least 3. I guess there are a lot of changes that I would like to see over the next few years, but you have to work at them gradually and build board support and public support in order to enact changes.